What's up, everybody? Time for another out-of-this-world story from our space. My 31 male wife, 31 female, is a pathological liar and other issues. Is this just a dead end? Hi all. Sorry this is a bit long, because I want to give a good sense of our issues. And these issues have recurred throughout our relationship since we first got together when we were college students. It's a bit of a mess. I'm at such a loss to even know how to feel at this point. I would just love to hear what anyone thinks about the situation, and I'd be grateful for any supportive comments either way. The main problem we're now dealing with, to be fair, among many others, is that my wife is totally untrustworthy. She lies about lots of things, and it could be anything, small or large. She's lied about what she ate for lunch. She's hidden entire friendships from me, and everything in between. It's always totally bizarre, because these are not even things I would or could have an issue with, except for a few of the bigger ones. This all blew up a few weeks ago because she was revealed to have been secretly going out with friends throughout the pandemic. I've been at home in the apartment for almost a full year, and we agreed that except for absolute necessities and, for her, work, I have been able to work from home, thank goodness. We would be as safe as possible and stay home and isolate. On several occasions, she told me she was working when she's really been out to eat, indoors, with friends or colleagues, or visiting them in their apartments, which was number one on our list of stuff not to do right now. I've foregone seeing my family except for my brother passed away over the summer, and all I did was go up to a cabin with my dad after total isolation so we could grieve a bit together, and haven't seen my friends at all. But apparently, going to work and seeing her work colleagues hasn't been enough socializing, and though she's been criticizing their lax behavior to me privately, secretly, she's been participating herself and systematically hiding it from me and lying about it. She makes me feel like I have no idea who she really is at any time. This was the tip of an iceberg, as it always is. You will probably not be too surprised to hear that I never learned anything like this from her that was not somehow proven to me by me first. Never in our entire relationship has there been a single time that I've gotten the full truth from her about something that could cause any upset or conflict. It's always pulling teeth to get nothing, and I always find out more over time, usually by accident, after she's promised that there's nothing else to know. So, after I found out about her secretly going out during the pandemic, I was going through our bank accounts and found out that she has been spending hundreds of dollars on an app on her phone. We'd had that problem a few years ago, and she promised she had taken care of it and wouldn't let that happen again. Lately, she's been so plugged into her phone, I've even been asking if she's having that issue again, and of course, she says she wasn't spending any money on games on her phone. But it's actually been about 4 months of putting money into apps on her phone while telling me she wasn't. She's also been expressing a concern about her finances and has been asking me to shift money from my account to her checking account so she could break even. And she's told me she simply has no idea where her money's been going for the past few months. Because we've had trust issues in the past, I really don't want to give in to paranoia and become the spouse that's always keeping tabs on their partner. So I don't normally even look into her spending. I trust her to manage her side of our finances. The week following this was a miserable time of her promising me she felt horrible and just couldn't bring herself to tell me these things, while insisting that there were nothing else she was lying about or hiding from me. Every time, I'd give her my trust again, because I always want to know that I did my best for this relationship no matter what happens on her end, and then, within a day, find some new hidden disaster. This happened several times. For example, for each time she went out during the pandemic, I had to learn about it independently. She never just told me about all the occasions. For all I know, there are still more I just don't know about. I can't go into all of it, but the gist of the other big one is that someone has apparently been sending her and one of her colleagues letters suggesting that they start a romantic relationship. I had no idea. Now, my common sense tells me, given how the one I saw was written and what sorts of things it said, that they were written by my wife or this colleague, most likely my wife. It sounds immature, I know, but the letters read like they were written by someone crushing on someone else and pretending they're a third party. It was very high school. The letter identified her using private information I thought only she and I know, except maybe her mother or sister. These were deeply personal things about the music we fall in love with and some traumatic events in her past. For example, her story is that she figured it was just some psycho stalker person who wanted to break us up. Sound plausible? Ha. And she didn't want me to worry, so she threw her letter away and didn't tell me about any of them. This colleague is also someone I'd, completely independently, thought was giving off some fishy vibes and crossing boundaries over the past year or two, And I know that my wife is highly drawn to my dynamic, where she crosses boundaries and creates drama with her friends. I was in denial about this for a long time, but it happened too frequently to deny at this point. I'm always in the dark about this until it blows up in our faces, and given the pandemic, it's just impossible to know what has really been happening. I have no idea she's been saying, "Oh, my husband is just crazy. I'm not going to stop hanging out with you guys." Or even if she's expressed so much dissatisfaction with me or affection for someone else, that someone could genuinely have gotten the impression that she wants to be with this colleague, or that someone more is actually happening between them. The hard truth is, I simply wouldn't know. But still, I've spent 2 weeks now trying to work on our marriage and, once again, trying my best to give her my trust. I accepted that she is happy in her marriage and is not interested in this colleague, and that she did not write the letters and has no idea why someone would have or how they got all the personal information. I've also spent a lot of time trying to talk with her about why these things are so devastating and how hard it would be to be with her if I felt I couldn't trust her. She's been very verbally reassuring for the most part, which is actually a change for her. It felt like maybe there was hope that we could rebuild on a stronger foundation. We had a good week or two, and we were at least getting along around Valentine's Day. Then, this morning, she lied about having taken her dog outside. I won't go into the details, except to say that she told me that she had taken her outside so I wouldn't need to, and I happened to figure out that she couldn't have taken her outside. I know that's such an insane thing to even have to write. I kept telling her that I really didn't think she is bad, because the dog was acting like she had to go outside, and she insisted. I even began to doubt myself, but I took the dog outside again anyway because she was begging to go. If I had listened to my wife, it would have been hours of my dog needing to go out and me thinking she didn't need to. Tonight, as we were getting ready for bed, I said, "You know, I still think you didn't walk her this morning," which I felt awful for, honestly, because it felt like I was wrong to be telling her I was doubting her given her difficult situation. And she just laughed and gave me a sinister smile. Then, the pretense was over, and a minute later, she admitted she was lying to me all day. She says she felt awful, but she kept doubling down on the lie all day. As usual, as soon as this became an issue, I simply dipped out and went to sleep. If I really struggle to convey that something is important or I'm upset, she might tag on a "sorry" or "we'll talk tomorrow." But the next day, she acts like nothing's wrong and gets mad if I expect to discuss whatever the issue was the night before. So, I'm here on Reddit while my wife is asleep, just completely at a loss as to how to continue. I've put my heart on the line so many times. She doesn't seem to think anything is ever seriously wrong. And I'm really only giving the bare minimum story here because I'm focused on these recent trust issues, but they go much deeper, and this is not the first episode like this in our relationship. These are the kind of episodes that have made me think one day someone we knew from those days is going to write me a letter and get it off their chest, what was really going on with my wife. I can't tell you how sad I am to be writing that down and admitting that to myself. In fairness to her, she had controlling and abusive parents who would try to control things like who she was friends with and what her interests were, and she learned to hide things from them and to be very afraid of conflict. So I try my best to be accepting and understanding when her first instinct is to hide something from me, or when she tends towards creating needless drama with her friends. I try to remind her that I'm nothing like her parents, but it's not like I expect her to just be able to rid herself of those habits and tendencies. I think she still projects a lot of stuff onto me that she associated with her parents. I don't react strongly when she tells me upsetting things because I want her to feel very safe telling me anything so that she might not lie or hide things as much. But I have a very hard time with her hiding things from me or outright lying to me. Often, these lies involve complete alternative accounts of her days or her thoughts, and it can be extremely unnerving. When the lies come out, I feel like I don't know who she is, and I often feel truly frightened by that. I love her so much. I've never doubted that in some real sense we are meant to be together. Personality-wise, we're extremely compatible. We really enjoy each other's company, we have so much in common, and we treasure what's not. We enjoy spending time the same ways. But even in these tough periods, for me, when everything seems to be on the line, she can still be extremely cruel, cold, and dismissive. It always feels like I'm putting me in 1,000%, and she's putting in 1% effort. And yet she feels like I'm expecting too much of her and blows up at me for just trying to talk about these kinds of issues so we can get better. Multiple times during the recent weeks, when I discovered a new lie, she blew up with, "I don't want to be with you anymore," which broke my heart, but felt like such a relief because it felt real. But then, she'd spend the rest of the day walking it back and apologizing. I know she does have genuine problems with her mood, as well as with her memory and attention. It just feels like maybe I lost my wife a long time ago and never even knew who she really is, if there even is such a thing. Even if her heart is still in it and she's just being thrown around by her own personal issues, she's still broken my heart over and over again over the past few weeks. And, as I said, this has happened before. Usually, it centers around her finding a new female friend group, which I usually know, but I'm not really friends with myself, which has happened often because we have moved a bunch for school and worked. The impression I get after she spent while bonding with these new friends is that there is a shocking counter-narrative about our relationship happening with her friends that I'm totally in the dark about. The first time this happened to us, this was revealed to me after a couple of years of feeling like I was losing my mind because I could tell something was very wrong, but I just chalked it up at the time to our being long distance. She always assures me I'm just paranoid, etc., until I find out that she has been painting our relationship in a bad light, but telling me everything's fine and there's nothing to worry about. This has gone from inventing conflicts that we never actually had, which I imagine is happening currently about how to manage a pandemic, to referring to me primarily as husband instead of using my name, or, back in the day, telling her friends not to use the word fiancé for me. That one was just a few days after I proposed. She said yes and we were happy, but then the next day she broke down crying and went to see her friends alone, with no explanation, and for years has just said, "Yeah, I guess I'm crazy," as if there was no rhyme or reason for her to do that. After seeing her friends, she seemed happy again. At the time, it just seemed completely bizarre and inexplicable, and she hasn't given me any sort of account of even how she was feeling. Now, obviously we do have issues in our relationship, but she definitely gets off on having me think we're doing okay while she's secretly doing something that seems likely to be destructive. I mean, gets off in every sense here. One way I can tell when she's been doing this sort of thing is that her libido shoots way up, as it has over the past few months. She'll wreak havoc on a relationship in a public way and then jump on me as soon as we get home. I know some people would conclude that she's been unfaithful or at least wants to end the marriage, but I have no real evidence that she's actually cheated, aside from a decade of getting that impression from all these lies and weird vibes and everything, and I don't want to be that paranoid spouse. I want to trust her. She's always been adamant that she's never been unfaithful and never wanted out of the marriage, except for those couple of blow-ups recently in the midst of my discovering more of the lies on top of lies. Her general explanation is that she has the psychological issues and does these things without realizing what she's doing until it's too late, that she's petrified of conflict with me, that she doesn't know how she comes across with her friends, and that she gives them the impression she loathes their relationship, until we discuss it well after it's too late to salvage a healthy situation. I'm always supposed to just say, "Oh, okay," and move on. I really don't know how to do that now. I would really love any feedback or insights. I know it sounds really bad in a lot of ways, but in some ways, it's not a lot to go on because I'm alluding to so much else, and you never really know what's going on inside someone else's relationship. We're just so happy, or so I think, most of the time. We've been together since college. We've had amazing times together. We have a dog together that neither of us could live without. But I can't keep going through life with someone I can't trust and who, at best, is always engaging in such intensely self-sabotaging behavior that I'm constantly suffering too, and our marriage is often hanging by a thread. Does this just seem over to you? Has anyone dealt with situations like this, where it seemed like there was no way to trust your partner anymore? Did you find any way to actually get someone to be more trustworthy? Could you get trust back? It's basically like the recovery people seem to go through after infidelity, except that she just never acts like she's on that path, and I never really know 100% what's been going on in the part of my life that includes her. I want to be as good a person and as good a partner as I can be, but I'm really struggling at this point to keep putting myself through this. I know some people will recommend couples counseling, but to be honest, I'm pretty terrified of what will happen if we try that. I'm now really bad at emotionally handling situations with other people where her narratives start to collide. I'm afraid of looking crazy if that happens, and it is what happens when we try to discuss our issues with any third party. She's just yet another version of herself I barely recognize and will say things that shock and surprise me, and it's devastating and destabilizing to try to engage with her productively when that's happening and someone else is there to witness it all, but is also clueless about what's really going on with her. I know even that might sound crazy. I've thought seriously about leaving a few times, but I usually end up too emotionally exhausted to really make that happen. I think I'm more depressed now than I've ever been, and that's really saying something after the past year. Part of why I end up so drained when I want to leave is that there was a time when I left and was so hurt and upset that I did just come back. And since then, if I even start to pack a bag, she starts mocking me and telling me I'll never leave until I'm literally too upset to continue. I know that's bad, and it's honestly embarrassing to write that out here. Any replies or support is really appreciated. Thank you. Holy smokes, that was a lot to unpack. Let's see what the community says in response. Fine hams abound, you start us off. No, there's no hope of her changing her behavior. She hasn't shown any interest in changing or being a better person, and you can't trust her at all. Additionally, she mocks you when you express that you want space. That's effed up, man. She is gaslighting you over dumb crap that doesn't matter and lying about huge stuff that absolutely affects your health. If she hasn't shown genuine remorse for her actions by now and actually shown, not just verbally said, that she is working to change, then there is no reason to keep giving her chances. She needs a lot of therapy on her own, and it's not your responsibility to make her do it or be responsible for the repercussions of her lies. And believe me, at some point, as she continues, you'll end up on the hook for something. You're exhausted because the way she acts is childish and exhausting to deal with from an adult who is supposed to be your partner. I don't flippantly say this, but you should start talking to a lawyer about your options and about divorcing this awful person who does not care about you. Accomplished Mode 70, what do you have to say about this? I used to be a really bad liar and a cheat. It always seemed that what they don't know doesn't hurt them, but the lies always catch up and you get found out. I never did it to spite my partner. I did it because I wanted to do it. But then I did something seriously wrong because all I cared was about affection and I was getting from someone else. I was caught in the act, and it's been a few years now, but to this day, I remember as it was yesterday, and to this day, I am absolutely ashamed of my actions. But I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I signed up to individual therapy. I made a decision that I need to change to try and salvage my relationship. It's been very hard, but I did it. Over time, I started seeing everything differently, and now I am proud of who I am. I try not to let the past define me. My point is, unless she wants to change, she will not. If nothing has changed in the last 10 years, nothing will change in the next 10 years. Change comes from within, and someone has to truly want to change their core. It took me a couple of years to finally get to a good place with my partner. We still have those moments sometimes, but we are working actively to rebuild our relationship. There was no couple counseling required, but I was the one who needed therapy. Unfortunately, if your wife does not want to change herself, there's nothing much you can do. I can just imagine how much it hurts, but sometimes it's better late than never. Crap happens. We meet people who we get on with so well, but we cannot take on everyone else's problems. We can only improve ourselves. Who doesn't love sheep? Wrap us up. If she is a pathological liar, the only way for that to be something that is manageable is to get help. And she's not going to do that because she has no need to. She sees no issue in lying to you. She gaslights you constantly despite how damaging that must be to you. You shouldn't have to worry when your wife says, "Oh, I've done that already," about something that's pretty important. You don't need to go outside. There's no avoiding that without upsetting your dog. And think to yourself, is she lying right now? Constantly. Reread this whole post back to you. Think really hard about whether or not you have the strength to continue this for the rest of your life. You sound so tired and lost, even through text. Also, try and contact a therapist for you, on your own. You sound like you need it to make sense of all of this before going ahead with any decision. Don't do couples therapy with someone who gaslights and manipulates you.